Michelle Keldo here from Retail Lifesavers. Hope you're all well. So today, Dave and I are going to cover off our COVID series for retailers. But before we get into the nitty-gritty of that, what I would like to do is just give everyone a little bit of an understanding about myself and my background first, and then I'll hand over to David, who's going to do the same thing. So I am a career retailer through and through, and have been since my very first job at 14. And as a whole, I have always been on the front line of retail. So when I was in corporate retail, my roles, I was always responsible for the execution of the business strategy. So the customer experience, all of the sales results, the store network, the online network. So everything that basically involved the numbers and the customer experience, I was always responsible for. Depending on the role that I was in, I was also at times responsible for the buying process, store fit outs, visual merchandising, and a variety of other touch points that really just delivered an exceptional experience for the customers. So fast forward to 2017, and I started my own business. I left the corporate industry and started what was Retail Rebel, which is now Retail Lifesavers. So what we want to do today is we're going to walk through some things that are going to really benefit you out there in light of what's happening in the world and retail around COVID. So without further ado, I'm going to hand you over to David and let David introduce himself, and then we'll kick off with what those things are.
Thank you, Michelle. My name is David Taylor. I started out as a software developer very early on, and got involved in the internet industry and telecoms industry very early on, when it was very early days of the internet industry. I'm primarily a software developer. I moved up the ranks of many of the fast-growing ISPs, and then it went through the various levels of management, got experience in other areas of the business, and actually were able to gain a full understanding of how marketing works and other areas do. When the opportunity presented itself, I also left the corporate ladder and moved into digital marketing. And I started out with web development. And the last 5 years, I've moved from just from pure development into other areas of digital marketing, such as social media, SEO, AdWords, and other areas, and take a very digital focus on those elements. So that's what I've been focusing. That's what I bring to the table. Today we're going to be, so Michelle, we're going to be going over a number of things today. Like we have the top 3 things for retailers. You just run through those 3 things that we can talk about today.
Yes. So I'm going to kick off with number 1, and just to kind of really set the tone for everyone, when we were deciding what we wanted to cover today, we really wanted to come to the table with something that would allow you to be able to implement quickly and effectively to be able to deliver a result. And so as a frontline retailer, always being responsible for sales, I've come to the table with 3 things that are going to all deliver that. So they basically sit under a driving sales strategy, if you like, and all allow you to be in the driver's seat to be able to deliver that result. So that's what we're going to do. So let's get into it. So the number 1 thing for me is that it is absolutely imperative that you have a digital address. So for many of you, you may have always just sat in the brick and mortar space and have not seen a need for needing a digital website. I would say to you now, it's become a non-negotiable that if you want to be found by the majority of the market, having digital real estate, a website that people can go to and find you, is absolutely it's vital, and it's imperative for the lifeline of your business, versus just relying on a customer stumbling across you inside, a shopping centre, a street strip, etc. So the digital address for me, I would put up there as number 1, because it all of a sudden takes you from, those people that just shop there in that centre or that street strip to the entire, digital world that's out there, that you've got, so many more people that are your target customer that can find you. So that would be my number 1, David.
Definitely. I sort of agree with that in terms of the website being a number one. If you're a retailer, you don't have a digital presence on some sort of website, you don't have the way to communicate to your audience. You don't have a way to communicate to those people before they enter the store and once they leave. And they can be at your store for a portion of time, but they're more likely going to get more experience and more understanding of your brand and who you are from your website. And it gives you a really strong opportunity as a business owner. You can actually communicate directly to your audience how you want to be presented and what you want them to know about. So I think that having a website is pretty imperative today, and people like to do a bit of research before they come in. And I think if a customer comes in with that information when they walk into the store, that's going to reduce the time for sales, and it's also going to mean that you've got a good, strong message for any staff that might be there, that the customer's already going to be quite informed about what they want to purchase before they come. And I think that's very important as well.
Yeah, totally agree. And look, and I'd even just add in there, David, that for those of you out there that have not, got a lot of experience with having a website, the investment in a website has changed so significantly over the last couple of years. David, would you agree that, what you think maybe it was in the past versus what it is now, it has changed significantly, and it's not as complex and complicated as you think it is. And you can certainly, if your budget is limited, there's certainly, stages or phases that you can go through and build that website in. And maybe, David, you can, just give a bit of insight into the mins and max of what that could look like for people so that there's just clarity.
Yeah, I think that's quite right. There's a lot of tools out there now to assist that along the way. And I think there's two things going on. One, there is a higher expectation from customers that there actually is a website. And at the same time, there's increasing solutions for retailers to provide those things in a more in a budget form if necessary, and to build on it over time. I don't think it needs to be. It doesn't necessarily. It just needs to be professional. It doesn't necessarily need to be lots and lots of content. People don't have the time anyway, so it allows you to focus on some key elements. Have one page. Start with some key elements. Have some good branding there. Start with a lower budget, and then you can build on that as you see. You don't have to do everything at once. And I do agree with you, Michelle, that on I think what you're alluding to is that many retailers will just turn around and go, "Oh, look, I've got to do this and I've got to do that," and they have this massive mountain that they've got to climb in order to get the website up and running. The reality is it doesn't have to be like that. You can start with something small, and then customers will at least be able to see something about you. And then as you see the benefits and the gains from that, you keep adding more and more and more.
Yep. And just for I guess those customers that are sitting out there and just want to have just clarity around, what would a starting price look like for an investment in a start-off website for a brand? Depending on,
a lot of it comes down to what sort of branding, what stuff they have to start with. Have they already got a good logo and all those other items? Assuming they've got a digital logo ready to go, they've already got some understanding around that. They don't need any kind of brand identity items, or they can go through a fast-track version of that. Then I think you're looking at around the $1,500 mark to start with at a minimum. Yep. For a basic one page, and then I think it starts from there. I think that's sort of where we would normally be starting with.
Great. Yep. Awesome. Okay. Fantastic. Well, that there's a big chunky one, and let's go into number 2. So for me, it logically fits straight in behind, which is an online store. If you aren't currently online and you don't have the ability to have an additional sales channel through an online store, this is what's going to open up for you the next level in sales generation. So over and above what you're doing with brick and mortar, an online store is going to allow you to be able to generate more sales. And if you are experiencing a level of discomfort because you're maybe not an essential service and you have been forced to close over these last 8 weeks, then I'm sure that there'll be pain that you'll be experiencing financially. So an online store, and with that online store, I just want to, I guess, express how important it is to make sure that that experience, the user experience online to purchase from you, is one that's just super seamless. It's stress-free. It's not clunky. It's fast. And there's just an enjoyment in it. And I'd suggest, if that's not the case, to ensure it is, because you're just going to find that the sales that you could potentially close and convert will drop off. And I always say, before you actually go out with anything, always step into your customers' shoes and test it out first. So by that I mean, get onto your online store and do a dummy sale and actually see how that experience is over there for your customers. That to me is just like an insurance policy that is just gold, to make sure that that customer is going to have a really, really seamless experience.
Absolutely. And I think,
David.
Yeah, absolutely. I think just to add to that, we just said, Michelle, I think two things. One, to make sure that people are, when they're actually going through that process, not just to test it on their desktop, but also to use it on their mobile. Many customers will actually be using the service on their mobile, even if they don't end up making a final purchase. There's plenty of evidence out there that customers will review the products on your website using a mobile phone, and then later come back and make a purchase online. And so their first experience will likely be on a mobile phone. And if you lose them then, and you lose them later as well. You don't necessarily have to set up e-commerce and have them selling straight away as well. Some people just set up with the products in there first, so that you at least have your customer or your audience has a much greater awareness of the products that you have before you then plunge into actually having purchasing. So there's a number of different steps you can take before you get to actually allowing a purchase and having all those systems in place. Absolutely though, the customer experience is important. If it's not there, if it's not fast, it's not easy to use, then it doesn't work, and you need to have the groundwork there to make sure that you have that in place. Otherwise, it's not going to deliver anything that you're actually looking for. It won't deliver the sales that you want.
Yep, totally 100% agree. So then we're on to number 3. And so this one is the customer. It doesn't matter how well all of those other things go. If you don't have customers, then, we've got no sales to convert at the end of the day. And before I kind of go into just a couple of specifics in that, look, I would say to you, first and foremost, one of my biggest frustrations through, a long retail career is people that go into retail or that work in retail, and they don't have a love and a passion for customers. And it just doesn't work. These days, customers just have so... they're at the helm and they're in the driver's seat. If you don't want to roll out the red carpet for them in your brick and mortar environment and online to just offer them the absolute most amazing experience, this is the one that's now become, the biggest crunch. And I would suggest that if working with customers isn't something that you feel passionate about and you're not prepared to work on it and change that mindset, I'd say right now, get out of the game. I would say for people that already were very customer focused, customer driven, my passion's customers, because at the end of the day, as a retailer, as a salesperson, I want to solve whatever problem it is that customer's got, so that they leave the environment, whether it is in a brick and mortar store or it's online, with an experience that they're almost, skipping with glee, because they have a solution to address a problem that they had. And that for me is what, that's what the game's all about at the end of the day. So customers is absolutely number one, the most important thing that you need to ensure that you have, and to be able to do that, mindset is number one. The second thing is that the experience that they have, again, as I've said, whether it's in a brick and mortar environment or online, it needs to be a really seamless experience. And I use the word experience. Everything these days is about an experience. Customers want to emotionally connect with you and the brand, and you want that experience to be one that is, it makes them really happy, and they go out and sing praises of you and your brand to other people, which is then ultimately going to bring more, business and more sales to you. And the only other thing that I would add to that is just that you have a database, that you are capturing customers that are purchasing from you, so that you've got the ability to be able to remarket to them. And we won't get into that particular piece today, but certainly, having a database with your customers for repeat visitation and communicating to them is super, super important.
Yeah, I agree. I agree, Michelle. I think that for me, the customer experience needs to be seamless all the way through. It needs to be from the very beginning when you go on the website, for when you go into the door. There needs to be the same branding and the same experience that you had online. And then when you leave, any communications digitally via email or your socials also need to follow that and follow that same pattern. It's very important that the branding is following that, the communication is there. You're absolutely right, though. Customers do want to connect with you, and you've got to give them a reason to do that. And having these messages sent to them about like what you believe and what you believe in and why you're there are so important to your audience. And so, there's obviously a lot of things that you mentioned, like retargeting stuff we could look into. But I think as long as you're taking those high-level principles and that you're considering those things throughout that whole experience, from digital, offline, online, all the way through, then it's going to make things a lot easier, and you're going to get more value out of each of those areas. You're going to be able to build on those areas.
Yep, completely, absolutely. So, look, I think just to wrap everything up, what we've covered today is the top 3 things that you can go and implement right now in your retail business. So they were ensuring that you have an online, that you have a digital address or a website. Number 2 is that you have an online store as a sales channel that customers can purchase from. And number 3 is everything around customers, the customer experience, and keeping your customers. So that's it from us for today. Please just shout out below the key takeaway that you got from our session with you today. And when we come back for our next video, we'll share with you 2 other key things that fit into what I would call the 5 fundamental pieces that you need underneath a successful brand to be able to achieve a successful strategy that will ensure that you have customers, you have sales, and you have a business that's growing in and has the ability to be able to scale over time. So thank you from me, Michelle Keldo from Retail Lifesavers. I look forward to speaking to you very soon, and over to you, Dave, for anything to wrap up.
Absolutely. And look, if anyone's got a couple of areas they'd like us to focus on, please let us know, and we'll try and include that in our next video. Otherwise, goodbye from me, David from Retail Lifesavers. We'll catch up with you next time.